What is up, everybody? Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today's video is going to be a little bit of a harsher topic. Not harsh really, but it's going to be a bit of a heavier topic in light of the recent election results, in light of the fact that Donald Trump is going to be re-entering the Oval Office in 2025. I decided that I would kind of dedicate a video to explaining to the best of my abilities how you can go out and you can change the gender marker on your government documents. For example, your ID, your passport, so on and so forth. I have already changed all of my documents except for my birth certificate, and I regret not getting my birth certificate done years ago as well, but c'est la vie, it is what it is. Learn from my mistakes, and I hope that this video is useful for anybody out there who is maybe struggling with getting the process started or has started the process but is still kind of like lost on what they need to do. Like I said, with Donald Trump being back in the Oval Office, he made it pretty clear throughout his entire campaign that he is very explicitly anti-trans and anti-queer.
The left-wing gender insanity being pushed on our children is an act of child abuse. Very simple. On day one, I will revoke Joe Biden's cruel policies on so-called gender-affirming care. I will sign a new executive order instructing every federal agency to cease all programs that promote the concept of sex and gender transition at any age. I will ask Congress to pass a bill establishing that the only genders recognized by the United States government are male and female, and they are assigned at birth. In all of human history, nobody's ever heard of this, what's happening today. It was all when the radical left invented it just a few years ago.
So yeah, I really just wanted to do some research and then come on here and share with you guys what I have learned. So yeah, this video I'm going to go through a few different scenarios and I'm going to try to do my best to explain to you guys the steps that you need to take in order to get your gender marker changed on your government documents. So without further ado, let's jump right into the video. Just so you know, anything that I say in this video, I will be linking these sources in the description of this video below. So if you're unsure or if I was unclear about something, you can head down into the description and you can find links for everything that I'm talking about here, and you can do some more research on your own time. So the first government document that we're going to be talking about is your state ID. So like your driver's license, things like that. Obviously, a lot of what I'm going to talk about in this video will vary based on where you live, where you're from, what state you live on. According to the Movement Advancement Project, or the MAP, there are currently 22 states that allow people to select male, female, or even X, which is just like the non-binary selection, I guess, as a gender marker on your state ID. So other states will allow an ID change, but they may require additional documents such as proof of surgery or a court order or an updated birth certificate. For example, when I changed my name and gender marker on my state ID, I was required to provide a court order, and I also provided a letter from, I believe, my doctor at the time, either my doctor or my psychiatrist, basically saying, yes, Dakota has gender dysphoria, he's been diagnosed with gender dysphoria, he's been on HRT for X amount of time, he's had top surgery for X amount of time, so on and so forth. But not all states require that, so it is really important that you do your research first and kind of see where you stand based on where you're from. Unfortunately, even before Donald Trump has stepped foot in the Oval Office again, there are multiple states, including my home state of Texas, that have begun to quietly revoke gender change protections or issue outright bans. So I would really recommend that if you're unsure about where your state lies within this issue, that you consult with the Advocates for Trans Equality and kind of get a feel for what your specific state's policies are. The length of the process and the cost for the process of getting your state ID changed kind of varies. It depends, again, on where you live, what state you're currently living in, but it generally takes a couple weeks to months at a time, especially if you're changing your name at the same time as your gender marker. And you should expect a small administrative fee. Some can range from like relatively minor, like $20 to upwards of $100 or even a couple $100. So just be prepared, try to budget a little bit for it. I can't remember the exact cost of mine, but I do remember it being at least $100. And that was for getting my name and my gender marker changed simultaneously in Texas. So just keep that in mind, kind of start putting some money away, budgeting a little bit, saving up a little bit, because there will be some small fees that you might have to pay. Next up, I'm going to talk to you guys about your passports. So the passport process, I guess, is a lot more straightforward than your state issued ID or like your driver's license. It's really easy for applicants to just self-select, which means that you don't have to provide any sort of medical documentation or anything like that, and you can just pick male or female without any sort of letter from your doctor or like a proof of surgery or anything like that. And that is regardless of any other sort of official citizenship or identity documentation. So even if your state ID is not changed, your passport can still be changed even without like proof of anything. Like you don't need to have everything changed before you do your passport. There are some states that allow you to mark your gender as X, as I mentioned before, which is officially recognized as unspecified or another gender identity. That's what a lot of non-binary and intersex people use to identify themselves on their government documents. But if you choose to use this gender marker on your passport, please keep in mind that some countries do not recognize this. So if you do plan on traveling abroad in the near future, just do your research first, maybe speak to the US consulate or the US embassy within that country and see if they recognize that as like a valid gender marker, because if not, your passport will not be considered valid. It will be considered invalid, of course, and you will not be able to travel. The passport, you will have to pay some sort of fee. It in general ranges anywhere between $60 to $200. So same situation with the state ID, just try to budget a little bit, try to keep in mind the fact that you're gonna have to pay some fees. There are always the shipping fees for getting all your documents sent in. If you want it to be expedited, that's an extra cost. So yeah, just bear in mind that these things do cost money, unfortunately. And you also need to keep in mind that these things do take time. A few weeks to a couple months is not an insignificant amount of time, especially if you're like me and you're seeking to move out of the United States because you would rather not live there throughout a Trump presidency, or if you're trying to just go on a vacation or anything like that. These things do take time, so you do need to kind of plan out any sort of changes that you're wishing to make on your government documentation and your travel plans, I guess, as well. The last one that I'm going to talk to you guys about is your birth certificate. Of course, like I said before, I have not done this, and that is probably my one regret when it comes to changing all of my government documents, is that I waited so long to do my birth certificate, because now Texas has revoked the ability for trans people to change their gender marker on their birth certificates, and so mine is stuck as female. Now, that's not the end of the world, because you really don't use your birth certificate for a lot of stuff, and you really don't need your birth certificate for a lot of things. So a lot of experts right now are telling people to not focus on the birth certificate at first, do the more difficult documents first, such as your state ID or your passport, and then once you have those things done, you can move on to your birth certificate. Because a lot of the times when somebody asks you for a government ID, you hand over your license or you hand over your passport. You're not carrying around your birth certificate in your back pocket. Now, when it comes to getting all of that information changed, there's no like one size fits all answer for birth certificates. The exact requirements and whether or not you are actually legally allowed to change the information on your birth certificate depends on what state you were born in. I know that that's really frustrating to hear, and I'm really sorry that I don't have better news for you all, but unfortunately that's just the way that things work right now, and we just have to play with the cards that we were dealt, essentially. Many states do require some sort of court order and or medical evidence to change the gender marker on your birth certificate, and that may include a medical provider's support or like a letter with proof of treatment or proof of surgery. It's really easy to get those. I remember asking my psychiatrist at the time for just a quick letter where she was just like, hey, I've seen Dakota for X amount of time. He's been diagnosed with XYZ. He's been on testosterone for X amount of time. And then she signed it, and I made a bunch of copies, and that was literally all I needed. And then once I had top surgery, I just asked my surgeon, hey, can you provide me a letter with this information on it? He did so, and it was relatively easy. I'm sure now it's much more difficult. I'm very lucky to have completed this process, so to speak, sans birth certificate, I guess. If you're unsure about your state's exact requirements, or if you've heard like different answers from different resources, I would definitely recommend that you try to get into contact with Lambda Legal. They have a state-by-state guide on birth certificate policies that you can use to learn more about the specific requirements for your birth state, the state that you were born in, I guess. Those are the big three: your state ID, so like your driver's license, your passport, and your birth certificate. Those are the major documents that most trans people would like to have changed. And those are the main three things that I think you should be focusing on when it comes to, crunch time and you really want to get those done before Trump comes into office and before they start really wiping out any sort of pathways for trans people to get their name and gender markers changed on their government documents. There are some other resources and other organizations that you guys can reach out to if you're not comfortable doing all the Googling yourself, or if you would just rather have a professional or an expert that you can really talk to and get down to the nitty-gritty details of all of that stuff. I will leave those in the description below. But yeah, that is all of the information that I was able to find. I really just wanted to bust out a quick video for you guys, a quick crash course, let's say, on how to get your gender documentation changed, or your gender marker changed on your government documentation, is a better way to put it, I guess. So yeah, if you guys have any more questions, absolutely feel free to leave them in the comments and I will do my best to help answer those questions. If I'm not able to answer, maybe somebody else who sees your comment will. Like I said, everything that I mentioned in this video, I will be linking the sources to that information and any sort of link to the resources and organizations that I mentioned as well in the description of this video. So please be sure to check out the description. In a time like this, where there's so much political unrest in the United States and there's so much dangerous misinformation being spread about transgender people in the media, it's really, really important now more than ever for all of us to come together as a community and offer a helping hand to those who are a little bit behind or who are feeling a little bit lost. I was lucky enough to have trans friends in the past who had already completed all of their document changes and they were able to help me out. So now here I am paying it back, doing my best to help out you guys. If you're still watching at this point, thank you so much for sticking around to the end. It's gonna be okay. No matter what, don't forget, it's gonna be okay. I am not saying that it's not gonna be hard. I'm not saying that it's not gonna be very challenging. I'm scared, and I'm sure a lot of you guys out there are scared as well, but there are resources out there. There are people that are fighting for us, and we have to fight for ourselves. So like I said, community is more important now than ever. It's time to band together and help each other out. Simple as that. So again, thank you guys so much for watching this video. I really hope it was helpful for you. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see y'all in the next video.